All right, so again, what we're doing right now is we downloaded these 6 different files, and today what we're really going to be focusing on to start with is how to import files in, not necessarily format them, but how to import them in, and then how to package and save them so that you can work on them later at different locations, okay? Towards the end, I will go through formatting. But I have these 6 files, and you guys have them somewhere too. And now that we have those saved, what I want to do in InDesign is have all of us create a new document and kind of walk through it together with those same files that we're importing. So you can open up a new file several different ways, but I'm just going to click on this Create New button right here. Let me bring it over to the right screen. And since I haven't been using this lab, since we got kicked out of our lab, do you guys notice that I don't have many things on my recents and that my default settings aren't set to inches? Okay, so before I open anything, I'd like to reset my screen and my documents to be set to inches. So let me have you guys help me out. My first question is, should I open up a document first and then change the units? No. What should I do first?
You want to change it here so that it stays
good.
Because if you just do it on the document, it'll be the one document.
Perfect. Yeah. So right now in my home screen without anything open, if I go to Edit and then Preferences, I can hop up here to Units and Increments, and it essentially changes the program default. So units and increments, I'm going to go ahead and change it to inches and then inches. So ruler units, inches, inches. Those are the only 2 things I'm changing. So once I change it here, every document I open will be in inches. As Darlene mentioned, if I do that while I'm in a project or a document, it changes it for that specific one, but not the ones that are opened afterwards. So it's best to do it here so that you don't have to keep changing it over and over again. So that'll be a good thing to notice when you guys are home. Or you may have done it, a year or 2 ago when you took digital graphics and it just saved it. Right? So now I went back to Create New Document and it's back in inches. I don't have anything really under recents only because, again, I haven't used this computer. If we were across the hall, if you recall, I have a lot more stuff over there. Now for today's example, and for most of our examples in this class, I'm going to go to Print Work, and I can go to View All Presets and see a few more things here. I'm going to go to a tabloid layout today, so that's an 11 by 17. The majority of our students, when they're working on their portfolios, do an 11 by 17. I will say that last semester, almost half the students kind of broke from that tradition, whether they got it printed somewhere else or they went a little bit smaller, just a little bit less than half. But the standard is the tabloid 11 by 17. And over here under orientation, I'm going to change it to be landscape. So you can see that there's that graphic there to help you. Those are the only changes that I'm going to make for now, and then I'll go ahead and click on Create. And I'm going to ignore these shortcuts for now. I'm not going to change anything until I've played with it. I'm going to minimize my Creative Cloud libraries only because I'm not going to be working on that for a minute. I like to have as much screen space as I can. So I just minimized that and dragged it down here. You can close out of it entirely for now if you want, and then open it up again later. As I'm working, I almost always like to have my Pages menu open, and I want to add, let's just say 3 pages for now. So 1, 2, 3.
Sorry, and when I tried to close that one part out, it closed my whole thing out. And
Okay, so if it's gone, go up to Window, and then Workspace, and go back to Essentials. And depending on what version you're working with, it might say Essentials Classic. If you see Essentials Classic, go to Essentials Classic. And then your screen will look like my screen, and it should bring it back. Right, everybody with me so far? Yeah? Okay. So now that we've got this document open, I'm going to say that my first page is essentially just a cover. I'll ignore that, and I'll come to pages 2 and 3 and start laying these 2 pages out. Okay? Remember that there's 2 ways to bring in images, and I always like to go with hitting F for frame, dragging and drawing the frame first. Do you guys remember why I like to draw a frame first instead of just clicking Control D and placing it? Abby, you're making eye contact, so I'm going to ask you.
Just puts the picture where you want it.
Yeah, and it doesn't come in huge, so it knows that it's going to fit it to that frame. Images, especially now images from your phone, they can be, huge, and so when you bring them in, it brings them in really large, and it's hard to see, wait, where did my sheet go? Where is everything? So by placing it in a frame to begin with, it's a little bit easier to manage. Now on this particular frame right here, remember that our default mode on our screen is to hit the V button so that we can see our cursor. So you can see if I'm in F, I have those crosshairs, and anything I try to click on, it won't click, it'll keep wanting to draw frames. So that's why as soon as I draw a frame and I'm done, I hit V or escape. And that takes me back to my cursor where I can actually click on this frame. And then up here, I can look at the size, and I'm actually going to change this to be an 8x6. Okay, so again, I clicked on it and I came up to the properties and changed it to an 8x6. I can also move this down, and you can see on my screen and on your screen those kind of purplish pink, would they be magenta? Magenta lines pop up. Those are our smart guides letting us know that we're centered in the page. So I'm just going to throw this right in the center.
How do you change the size again if you want?
So go ahead and click on it, and then up here, do you see that there's a width and a height property that pops up after it's selected? It might be a little bit different on your laptop. Sometimes menus get hidden. If it helps, I think you can go to Window, and then let me see if Properties is on here. Object and Layout, that's not it. Did you find it?
Yes.
Okay, good.
And you wanted it what size?
I did it 8x6.
I don't have that.
The 8x6?
Toolbar.
Okay. So if you don't see the toolbar, go to Window and change your workspace to Essentials Classic. Mine is a little bit different. It hasn't updated in this lab yet, but do you see Essentials Classic? Okay, and then you should be able to get the bar back. This only updated like maybe a month and a half ago, and so I'm gonna wait until fall before I switch to the update because there might be another one before fall. So for now I'm hanging out in Classic. If you took digital graphics with me and we did InDesign, the Essentials Classic is what you've already seen and what you should be comfortable with. Okay?
Will it always let you revert back to it?
For now, yeah. I don't know what's going to happen in the next 2 versions. We'll see. Either way, I have to get comfortable with the changes. So, all right. Now that we have a frame in here, my example is going to be a little bit different than yours, okay? When I hit Control D, I want to pull in some of the Villa Savoy JPEGs. And this is the reality of how some of us work. So if I go to my desktop, there's one file there, because sometimes that's where you save it. And then in my portfolio folder, I have an images folder with the 3 Villa Savoys. And then if I go to downloads, my interior elevations are still in here, right? That's really just the reality of it. You save things in so many different places, despite your best intentions. So part of what we'll be doing today is showing you guys how to package. And what packaging does is it takes all of your images from all those different places and it packages it in one place. Now that's a great way of doing it as long as you keep putting your images back in that package when you're done. If you don't keep putting them in that place, you'll just kind of have to keep repackaging and repackaging. And that gets a little bit heavy on your computer because it's not moving everything. into one new location, it's creating duplicates of it in that new location. So file organization will be, I think, pretty key when you start working on your portfolio, especially if you're going back and forth between the lab and home. All right, so before we go, I'm going to save this onto my Creative Cloud so that I will be able to hopefully go back and forth between both places. Okay, but for now, I am just hanging out. I'm actually on my desktop portfolio, and I will be saving it somewhere in here. So I'm just going to call this portfolio test. Whoops. I forgot that I was placing. I got a little bit ahead of myself. I just wanted to show you an example of where I was. So do you guys remember the shortcut? I have my frame clicked. That's how InDesign is going to know where to place it. Do you remember the shortcut for placing? Control D or Command D. Yep, either one of those works. And again, what I am looking for are the Villa Savoy images. So let's just pull in Villa Savoy 1, or 1 Villa Savoy. And I guess while we're here, this would be a good time to talk about how it placed inside and how to change the size of which it comes in. Okay, so right now, is there something wrong with our image? Like, why are we not seeing the whole thing? Did it actually get cropped somewhere? Are we missing part of it? We're not actually missing it, right? But if we find, yep, so the frame is cropping the actual image. So if you can, find the center of your image. Remember, you have to be in the V selection mode, and a little hand will pop up. And as soon as you see that hand, give your screen a little high five. Not really, you're just kind of clicking on the screen. And what you'll see is a new kind of brownish gold frame within your blue frame. So the difference between these two is that this frame right here is the container for the image, and they don't have to be the same size. So right now, the image that's in the frame is larger than the frame. And that's okay. Sometimes you'll want to zoom in on a particular area. So right now, if I wanted to resize this, I didn't mean to rotate it. You can rotate it too. I can grab this corner and pull and resize it. But one thing that's a little bit dangerous about it is if I just drag and pull, do you see that I'm changing the proportions of it right here? You always want your proportions to be locked. One thing that's frustrating is see that I have my proportion lock on. For whatever reason, about 2 years ago, InDesign changed this so if you come and drag, it kind of ignores that. Okay, so I'm going to undo that if I can. I did quite a bit of dragging and pulling. There we go, 100 by 100. What you have to do is hold the Shift key down and then drag, and then it'll lock the proportion for you, even if you have it clicked on here. So go ahead and hold your Shift key down and grab one of these corners and try to get it so that we essentially just see this face of the building. Try to get it right on that line right there, and see how I'm being cut off right here. Again, if I hold Shift down, it should make it large enough to where I can get that in the frame. And I use my keyboard buttons to kind of nudge it to the right too. A good example of this is maybe you have a picture of a board and you just want to show a certain part of it. You might want to crop some of it off. A better example would be maybe your AutoCAD project. You have a whole bunch of details, interior elevations. You might not want to show the whole sheet, but part of a sheet, which is why you'd kind of zoom in on one area. Any questions about that? Do you guys need any clarifications on it? Darlene?
Don't, but when mine is still at 100 by 100, so it's proportional, are we supposed to make it bigger so it actually fits?
So what I did here, do you see my example where I just kind of did that? So right now your frame is 100 by 100. Do you see how my frame is 100 by 100? But if I click on the image, mine is at about 116%.
So we want to change that to 116?
Not necessary. It doesn't have to be 116, but match my graphics. So I had asked you guys to grab this image and essentially, do you see this face right here? I just wanted you guys to cut off that face and make it look something like this.
So I did that, but I still have space on my square. With just white space.
So make it bigger so it fills it in. So you're not quite there yet. I had to keep adjusting mine too.
Okay.
If you re-watch this, this lecture, you'll see that one of the last things I did was grab this side of mine and kind of pull it out like this, because mine was also cutting off. Is this the left side? Is yours short on the left side right here, Darlene? Yeah, mine was too.
Okay.
And then if you want to see a preview of what it looks like, see how it looks like there's some sky sneaking in right here, at least to my eye? If you hit W, again, you can toggle back and forth between work mode, which is this mode right here. It shows you all of the non-printing objects. And then by hitting W, it takes you to the print preview mode. Okay, I'm gonna go
Shortcut to that.
W.
I mean, not a shortcut, but a click.
No. Well, yeah, I think, let me see if it's still there. Do you see this down here?
CAD, and remember all the shortcuts, and then this, remember all the shortcuts? Your mind has got to be.
I don't even think about it anymore. I've used these programs for so long that the thing that's hard for me is going back to CAD. Hitting enter after every command is hard now. Like I just sit there and I'm like, do it, CAD. I'm like, oh, enter. So down here, Tiffany, for me it's a right click, which seems really weird. If you right click on this, you can go from normal to preview, and then a couple others that we're not quite using yet, the bleed and slug. Yep, that's this little tiny button right here, and there's probably going to be an update this summer that gets rid of that button. I'm fine, everything is fine. Okay, here's a question for you guys. When you are in Photoshop and InDesign, what button, what key can you hit that allows you to duplicate an object? Do you guys remember? The Alt key, good. So right now, take a look at my cursor. Again, I have to be in V mode or selection mode. If I hold the Alt key down and click, what happens to my cursor? Do you see that double-headed arrow? Now if I drag, I'm holding the Alt key, well I've let go now, but as soon as you see, as soon as you see that, you can essentially duplicate a frame. Do you guys want me to show you that one more time?
Yes.
Okay, so hold the Alt key down and then just click and it allows you to duplicate it. So I clicked and dragged and it made a copy of it. I didn't need to hold the Alt key down, but it lets you easily make a copy of the frame. So that's really convenient for two different reasons. If you have a font that you have already formatted perfectly and you want to duplicate that font frame, you can just Alt click and drag on it, so you don't have to reformat the whole thing or do a copy and paste, right? The Alt click drag I think is a lot easier. Or if you have an image frame and you want all of them to be the same size, again, that Alt click and drag is really easy too. Okay, so use that one quite a bit, and remember that same technique works in Photoshop too. You can just hold the Alt key down and then drag and it'll duplicate it for you. So what I want to do on this side is show you a few more formatting options. And again, depending on when you took Photoshop from me, some of these may not have existed, so I'm going to show you a new way. Now, remember that your ribbon up here is dynamic. So right now, if you take a look at mine or yours, it looks a certain way. But then when I click on an image, it updates and gives me more buttons, specifically these buttons right here. Okay? So right now, let's click on this one right here, which is fill frame proportionately. and you can see that the image fit the frame one particular way. Click the one next to it. Oh, that was like way too lucky. I had no idea that the proportions of this image would fit this nicely. Let's cheat a little bit so I can really show my point. Please click on the frame and let's change it to a 6 by 6 so it's square, and then just center that for me. It's kind of a moot point if we don't have something like this to kind of play with. Once you have it square, click on those two buttons again. Bless you. And do you guys see the difference between the two fittings? So let me talk about the first one. The first one being fill frame proportionately. So in this one, what it does is it's really worried about the frame. It's going to take the frame and it's going to fill it with your image edge to edge. Now what ends up happening, if I click on the actual image, do you see that the image is cut off on the left and right side? Okay. Right now that's a little bit awkward because in an image like this, it looks really like the building is being cut off. It would be even more awkward if this was a Revit plan or an AutoCAD plan and all of the sudden part of your floor plan is being cut off, right? So what you could do in that instance is you could do fit content proportionately, and what it does is it takes the whole image and it fills it to that frame, okay? What's a little bit awkward about this frame right now though in relation to the image itself? Yeah, so I've got a gap at the top or the bottom. And the reason why that's awkward, if I'm trying to align the top of this to like maybe text, so imagine the title is here, Villa Savoy. What happens if I put the frame at the top of Villa Savoy? Is my image at the top? No, there's a blank gap right there, okay? So there's another button that we can hit. How many of you guys are used to all of this being in a right-click menu? Okay. Yep, so some, and I just discovered these like last semester. Was it last? Yeah, I think that, maybe fall semester. These are all so new to me, so that's why I'm like, really? InDesign? Adobe? We're already changing? So what we can do now, do you guys see this button here, Fit Frame to Content? If you click on that, it'll take the frame and just snug it around. So now, going back to my voguing, sorry for my friends at home, if we have the title up here, and we want to align the frame to it, now the two tops will be together, okay? Now, if these ever get lost, so Darlene, you're working on a laptop, sometimes these graphics get cut off, you can always go to right click, go to, I can't find them anymore. Up there. Is this what you guys feel like? There we go. There's everything and the keyboard shortcuts.
That's how you taught us when I took it.
Yeah, because the buttons didn't exist.
Okay.
Now the buttons exist.
See, I didn't even notice those buttons up there because this is how I did it.
Yeah. I felt great. You will. I love the buttons. And the best part about them, so again, if you're coming from, you know, a little bit old school, it's not even that old school, but we always ran into that problem. Let me undo this. So now, see where it says fit content to frame? We never want to use that because do you see how it strained the proportions? The only time you can use that is if you're trying to make Naima look skinnier. Just expand me as much as you want. But with like buildings, floor plans, we don't want to do that. And the biggest problem with going to that fitting menu, half of those are not proportional, okay? They're really trying to make everything proportionate. Now, the reason why that button still exists is because not everybody is pulling in an image of a building or a floor plan. There's some people that really use this for fun. Polka dots don't matter if it's to proportion. Rainbows don't matter if it's to proportion. You know, sometimes you really just want to fill it up with the graphic, and it's okay if the scale is off a little bit. In this class, though, 99.9% of the time, it should always be proportional, okay? There is a new button too, Auto Fit, that I am not used to. So let's play with that. Let's do another shortcut on how to duplicate stuff. So look at my screen for just a moment. if you hold the Shift key, you can select more than one page at once. Okay, I'm going to show you guys one more step, so don't look away too long. After you select the 2 pages you want to duplicate, grab those pages and drag them down to the new page icon, and it duplicates those 2 pages for you. Okay, I'm going to do it one more time so that you guys can kind of follow along too. Again, if you hold the Shift key down, it lets you select more than one page at once. After that, drag them down here to the new page option, and it duplicates those pages for you. Okay. Now, click on those pages, and then using the hand icon, okay, so we're not deleting the frame, we're deleting the images in the frame. Take a look at my screen. Use the hand to grab the image in the frame. Delete those so that they're empty again. Go ahead.
You have everything under A master, and every time I do something, it added E master and F master.
Oh shoot, so,
Six masters.
yep, so now you're working up here in masters, I'm working down here in pages. So Janelle, just stay where you are and keep working, but when we started, you started working up here in the master area and not the pages. It's a really subtle difference, but I want you to be down here. So for the example, just keep going. We won't be going over masters for a bit, but you can still keep working for now. All right? Okay, so now that we've got these 2 frames here, let's go ahead and click on one of the frames, right? Turn on auto fit. Do you see this little button right here? And again, I haven't played with this much. And let's place that exact same image again and see what, okay, that was cheating. Let's see what program is this, guys? InDesign thinks autofit can do. Whoops, sorry. Did I turn that off? Okay. Let's cheat one more time. So with this autofit, for the next one, let's delete this frame here, because I think what it's doing is remembering what used to be in its frame, okay? And let's just freehand a frame in there. It doesn't matter what size it is, just click and drag, okay? And now with the autofit on, drag it in again. Mine wasn't too bad. It at least did it proportionately. Did you guys do it did yours come in proportionately? Okay. So I hope that in time, autofit will just be on by default. What I have found in the version that I'm in the lab across the hall, I don't know how, it's a version ahead of where I am right now. And I think you guys are starting to get a version ahead of me, especially if you have to go to Essentials Classic. But I would like them to keep autofit on as the default mode, because I don't think it makes sense having it come in so big. If you've worked with InDesign before, I think you're familiar with having a frame this big and having your image come in like this and having to resize it. I like the autofit so you can just kind of see what's coming in, okay? So that's just a quick review of how to do the basics of pulling images in. Let's do 2 more examples. I want to go over how to pull stuff in from Photoshop and how to pull in PDFs. Last week you guys were kind of on your own to watch the lectures, but in case you didn't have time, we're here in lab, so if something isn't working, I can at least help you with that. Okay, for this next example, I am going to show you guys a couple ways to add 4 pages, okay? We're going to add 4 pages total. You can click on this Create New Page 4 times, okay? And it added 4 more pages to me, for me. Not necessarily in the order I wanted, but if you take a look at my screen, I can drag page 9, okay? I'm just dragging it, and I'm dropping it back to where I wanted it to go. Okay, I'm going to do that one more time. Page 9 is down here, but I want it here. I drag it, and then I drop it back in place. Okay, let me delete those 4 pages. So that's one way, just clicking the button. The other way that you can do it is you can right-click and go to Insert Pages, and you tell it, I want 4 pages at the end of the document, and then click OK. So pick one of those and add 4 new pages for me. You guys got that okay? Is it coming back to you? Good. All right, now for this next example, let's start with our PDFs. So for this frame, go ahead and draw it draw 2 frames, and let's have both of those frames essentially go from margin to margin. When you're ready, go ahead and click on one of the frames and go to Control D and find that PDF. Now remember, just to make a point, I saved my stuff all over. And so now I'm not in Villa Savoy anymore, but I think in my downloads, here's the interior elevations file. Now, do you guys remember when you're working with PDFs, what do you guys need to do on this screen before you place it in there? Good, show import options. If you don't have this clicked, by default, it always keeps bringing in the first page. And if you only want the first page, you're in luck, right? But usually we want more than 1 page, or we want page 7 out of 10. So by turning on show import options, we can kind of skip through the pages. Okay, so go ahead and find it, click on show import options, then go to open. And the only thing that's different is we're going to get 1 extra screen. Meet me here, and I'm going to go over the few different options that we have in case you've forgotten, or maybe it's updated since the last time you worked with Indesign. Okay. I don't hear clicking. I think we're good to go. Yeah. All right, so the first thing here is pages. It's asking you, do you want the previewed page? So what you can do is you can click through this, and if you can read what's on the previewed page with this little thumbnail, God bless ya, right? Just pick that one. Or you can tell it all, and you can do them one by one. For this example, let's do page 2, okay? And then these next 2 things I think are just as important. So crop to media makes it so that if you are pulling in an 11 by 17, it's going to pull it in as an 11 by 17. So those of you at home, I am voguing. I'm showing you an 11 by 17. By default, it's showing the bounding box, which means visible layers only. So here's our 11 by 17, but we know that in CAD and in Revit, we have a white space around our title block, right? Essentially, Indesign wants to ignore those transparent or white pixels, and it wants to bring it down to the edge. I'm really picky. I don't want it to get rid of anything. If I've said 11 by 17, I want an 11 by 17. I want that edge around there. So I almost always go to media, so it's the same size. Another quick note here, I use this feature all the time to fill out forms, whether it's for work or for more kids, whatever. And what I end up seeing is that if somebody sends me an 8.5 by 11, it wants to crop it down to the margins. Like Microsoft Word almost always has a 1-inch margin. So all of a sudden, what used to fit perfectly on a letter-sized piece of paper is too small. And I know that that same little thread of OCD that runs within me probably runs through you. So by keeping it fit to media, when you pull in that 8.5 by 11 PDF, it'll be exactly where it'll be exactly where the person who created sent it to you. Again, whether it's your kid's school, for a job, whatever PDF. In fact, last summer around this time, I was filling out passport applications, and I wanted that PDF to look exactly like what the government had sent me. So the only way to do that is to keep it to media, okay? Now the other thing that you can do, transparent background on or off. Click on that on your screen and you'll see a really quick way of what it looks like. So you have to decide, do you want it to have a white background or do you want it to be transparent for other things to come through? Okay, and sometimes you want to draw on top of it, so you want it to be transparent. For the most part, if I'm bringing in drawings, I want it to be solid white so other things can't bleed through it. But again, there's situations where you might want it transparent. Okay? So after that, go ahead and click on OK. I don't think I didn't have autofit on. Darn it. The next one I'll turn on autofit. But here is our classic, you know, it comes in at the pixel scale and not the scale. But now I can just click on this box right here, or this one right here, okay? And it ends up fitting it to the page. Then last but not least, I can fit the frame to it so that I don't have those extra pieces on the side. Did you guys get that okay?
What was the last one? Fit the frame?
Yep, fit frame to the content. So we don't want those edges on the side. Go ahead and do that one more time on the right side. Turn autofit on. See what it does. In this case, it might not help because it is a Revit drawing, but pull in page 5 for me. So we're going to have page 2 on one side, page 5 on the other. When you're working on your portfolios, I would be amazed if you guys pulled in every page of your PDF, especially for your Revit project, right? You kind of want to show your greatest hits, like here are 3 of the main things I want to show you. And then when you go in for a job interview, maybe you can email them the whole PDF or send that one separately to show more experience.
I used autofit the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And it pretty much fit. Then I have to draw the lines just a little bit to see the top.
Okay, so almost got it?
Yeah.
Yeah, again, I'm not that familiar with autofit. I like their thought behind it. You know, they might have to perfect it, but I like where they're going with it. All right, so now you guys know how to pull in PDFs. And then the last thing that I want to show you before we go into exporting and saving is a review of how to pull in PSDs. And so that's what we'll do on pages 8 and 9, or whatever pages you might be on. Now, this by far is my favorite part of InDesign. I love how well InDesign and Photoshop work together. So we're going to do another frame here. And let's make this frame the 8.5 by 11 size. Center it, and then copy that same frame over to the other side. Okay? So 8.5 by 11, centered, both sides.
I'm sorry, I have a weird thing happening.
What's that?
All of my left pages,
Mm-hmm.
2 through 8,
Uh-huh.
there's a locked image of that first image we had.
Oh, shoot. So that's because up here, and so did you switch from working to your masters to working to your pages? Your master page gets applied to every page. That's why I wanted you to hang out in masters. So what you can do, what letter is on your right side? Go to A, master, and delete that image from A, master, and it'll come off all the other pages. Okay.
I see the lock sign too, so. Okay. But now nothing's.
It'll be blank, and that's okay.
I forgot what we were doing.
So on our last 2 pages, an 8.5 by 11 frame centered, please. Actually, before I pause, let me do this. What I also want you guys to do is I have that 01 Photoshop file example. Let's open that up in Photoshop. We're going to have it open in 2 places for just a bit. I love Photoshop. In fact, one day I hope that I can just teach as a hologram and it'll be like Snapchat where my outfits and hair and makeup is perfect and like stars will come from my eyes. I'm so excited for the future. It's like better than online classes. this kind of base image that we'll be working with, what I want you guys to do is kind of what we've been doing before. We're going to do Control D, but we're going to turn on Show Import Options again. And then when we hit Open, we can actually select what layers we want to have on when we import it in. So for example, if you just wanted the background of SLCC, you can turn off the logo, your favorite teacher, professional outfit, and just get that background. And that doesn't change anything in the Photoshop file, okay? So again, make sure Show Import Options are on, turn off those 3 layers, and then click on OK. And then on the right side, I hope I'm not going too fast, pull it in again, but then this time keep all the layers on. Is that working for you guys? Yeah? Okay. And again, I love this because when you are working in Photoshop, you may have labeled some items and you can turn off your labels so you can put them in again in InDesign to match the rest of your format. You may have done an entire board for somebody, but they hated like a sofa or a lamp you picked. And what you can do is just go to that layer and turn that off and then maybe bring in an alternate. So it really helps you work in Photoshop and in InDesign at the same time. So let's do an example of that. It looks like everybody has both images in. So in the image that has me on it, let's right click on that and you should be able to go to Edit Original and it should open Photoshop up automatically for you. And it should be that same file. Did everybody get that okay? Okay. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go to our layers, okay? And I'm gonna go slow because it may have been even longer since you've taken Photoshop, but add a new layer for me. It's gonna be called Layer 1, at least that's what mine is called. And then hit B for brush. That's kind of your paint tool. And this is where everybody's going to be a little bit different. I would say just come down here and make sure yours is black and white. I guess mine is too. And then maybe do some scribbles. Or if you're going to do it best, maybe do a scribble like this. No, I won't see, but I'll feel it. Okay. Again, that was B for brush, and just make sure you've got black here. And we won't spend too long on it, but as soon as you're done, hit Control S so that it saves. So Control S is a shortcut to save, and that's any program. InDesign, Photoshop, Revit, AutoCAD. I do it compulsively now. And then as soon as you hit Control S, hop back into InDesign, and it gives you a warning that something has changed, and just click on OK, and whatever you drew should automatically pop up. Did that work for you? Darlene, what happened with yours? Did you hit Control S? Like, did you save it first?
I hit Command S,
Maybe go up to File, Save. But Command S should do the same thing. And if that doesn't work, I'll show you one more thing. So, Darlene, hang out there for just, come back, everybody go back to Photoshop real quick. Here's the other thing that it does. If you make a change, so for example, go to SLCC logo and move it maybe in the, just move it. It doesn't matter where it goes, just move it. Okay. And here's a really subtle thing. Sorry, so hit the V command again. And if you Is it V? Nope. Sorry, this is being weird. SLCC logo. Yeah, you should be able to just hit V and then move that. But Darlene and everybody else, here's a really subtle thing I want you guys to notice that you may have forgotten about. Okay, I'm a version behind in here because this is not how it's supposed to work. There we go.
How did you save it after you did the heart?
Okay, this is what I'm going to show you guys next. In your file, do you guys see a little asterisk next to the X to close it? That little star? So that star, whenever you see that, it means that there have been changes that you haven't saved yet. So if I hit Control S right now, do you see how the star goes away? That means that the most current version has been saved. So again, that's true in every program, the Adobe programs and the AutoCAD programs. If I just take the Salt Lake Community College and nudge it a tiny bit, do you see how the star is back? So I have to hit Control S. So Darlene, just make sure you don't see the star. Okay, let's go back to InDesign. And then on mine, this time, do you see how it didn't automatically update this guy for me? I don't know what's different, but do you see that there is a caution sign here? Do you guys have a caution sign? Okay, so on mine, if I click that caution sign, it updates it for me.
So for me, I have something weird happening where one automatically updated and the other one didn't.
So for me, the only one that should have updated should have been the one on the right because that's the one that I said edit original. This one updated because I hit the caution sign. Okay.
Right, what if you wanted to just edit one? You could just leave the other one alone?
Yeah, the other one should just stay the way that it was.
Because mine updated both.
Did it update both? So with that one, you can, this isn't the easiest way of doing it, but you can go back to your PSD and you can change, sorry, it might be under links. I have to find where that menu is. I don't want to sit up here and fumble and show you guys the wrong way, but there is a way to get back to your layer menu and then essentially turn those layers back on or off so that you can control your visibility again. So again, that's one of the reasons why I love using the two programs together. You can really work simultaneously in one and the other. So if you are doing like redoing a board or just making a board from scratch to begin with, we always want to use InDesign to do our print layouts. And we always want to do Photoshop to use Photoshop to do like the graphic design work. So do all of your, by print layouts, I mean what you'll actually be printing. And then in Photoshop, you would do all of like your furniture layouts and vision boards. And the thing that's nice is as you're laying out InDesign, if you see something you don't like, you can open it. You can open up Photoshop right from InDesign, make those changes, save them, and have them automatically, like seamlessly save into InDesign. I think it works really nicely. Okay. All right. So now with that, let me show you kind of the last step that I was talking about, and this is the packaging. I lied. Let's do one more thing before we do packaging. Let's add one line of text, all right? And maybe change the font from the standard font. Pick any one that you want. I don't want to use the Minion Pro. What is going on here? So I'm just gonna put in my name. I don't even think I spelled it right. I'll find out in just a minute. Whoa. Is my N not working? There we go. I think my keyboard's a little bit rusty. I could not get my N's in there. All right, let me ask you guys a question. How many of you guys in here don't have a Creative Cloud subscription anymore? Do all of you?
I just re-signed up for it.
You just re-signed up for it? Elena, do you not have yours anymore? Oh, you still have? I don't know. Sorry, I thought you had your hand up. So, Brooke, you don't have yours?
I don't know if I do.
Okay.
Probably not then.
So, if you don't have it, this part, some of this part won't apply to you, but some of it will. So, you can still package, but you won't save it on the cloud. You'll save it on your USB, your desktop, wherever. But you still have to figure out how to get your file from here to home, right? If you're working on your Creative Cloud, you can still work here and then open it up at home. Do I need to clarify that? Or are you guys familiar with that process? Anybody?
Can we do the same in Google Drive if that's what we're used to using?
It's not quite the same because in Creative Cloud, it works just like your desktop. So when you're working on your desktop and you open something and you save it, it goes right back to your desktop. If you're working on Google Drive, to open it, you have to download it and then open it and then resave it back to the drive, right? Did you see that extra step? Where Creative Cloud, everything's just feeding right back to it. So you could use Drive, but it's that one extra step to make sure that it's uploading.
But if you lose your Creative Cloud subscription later, do you lose everything?
I don't know how that, I don't even want to think about it. I am pretty sure. What was that?
You can still log in to get the files, but you can't use any of
You just can't work. Okay, that's what I thought because I had a moment there where my professional license lapsed and I forgot I had the student one, or sorry, an instructor one, and I thought I was working on the instructor, and all of a sudden it just, but I still had access to everything, but just not the programs.
so you can still get it.
Yeah. Darlene?
Oh, sorry, I'm a little bit behind. How do you get your font or change your fonts?
I'm going to come back to you. Just write your name and just keep whatever for now. Is that okay?
Yep.
It's like Microsoft Word. You have to highlight it first before you change it. Maybe that's what's going on. But I'll come back and help you.
No problem.
So with this, what I'm about to do is something called packaging. So whether or not you have Creative Cloud, anybody can package. And in fact, this is kind of the best way of saving a file. Because remember, in InDesign, we aren't like Microsoft Word where the images are actually in the file, right? The images are going back to its source folder. That's why we were able to go into Photoshop and edit something and it automatically updated. You can't do that in Microsoft Word because once you move a file into it, it's disconnected from that main one. Do you guys understand that concept? Do you want me to tell you that one more time just to be safe? Okay. So in Microsoft Word and most other programs, so here on my desktop, if I have that Vila Savoy file, when I pull it into Microsoft Word, it has nothing to do with this file over here anymore, right? They're completely disconnected. But in InDesign, so Microsoft Word is gone. I've pushed it away. I wish I was a hologram and I could bring up all these things, okay? Now I'm in InDesign. Here's that same Vila Savoy file. When I pull it in, these two files are still connected. And not just these two, but everywhere else I pull up the Vila Savoy. Just like you guys saw. So when we did the example of me at SLCC, when we updated the one, it updated the one next to it. And all 10 others, you know, if we had 10 more on that page. So these two are always connected. The good thing about it, they're connected. You update one, it updates all of them. The bad thing, you accidentally delete the one from the desktop, what happens to the 10 in your file? They're gone, they're not linked. If you took InDesign from me in 1250, I'm sure that at some point of the semester, all of you guys came to school with your work and you saw those caution signs on everything. And it said like, it's not linked, the source file is gone, the source file is gone. So just as important as it is to know where your InDesign file is, which is this untitled one right here, you have to bring all of your baggage with it. And those are all of the files linked to it. So like I was saying at the beginning of class, if you're organized and you put everything in one folder and you make sure that these two stick together, great. But if you are a little bit more human like I am and have some on your desktop, some on your downloads, and some in other places, it's good to package it right at the get-go and then just keep working in that package folder. So put everything back in there. So What I'm going to do now, I'm going to save this as. First, I'm going to put it on my desktop with everything else. And again, I'm going to call this Portfolio Test. Okay, so this is on my desktop. And the images are everywhere. But to make life easier for me and to allow me to work at school and at home, the next thing that I'm going to do is package it onto the Creative Cloud. If you don't have a Creative Cloud yet, save your package somewhere else and then just make sure you put it on a USB or upload it to Google Drive before you guys go. Okay? So I'm going to go up to File, Package, and then here, if you want to go through, fonts it'll list all of the fonts that it's bringing in. If you go to Links and Images, this is really important because it'll tell you that you have 7 links, 0 are modified, 0 are missing. What that means is you may have gone into Photoshop and edited something and you didn't update it. So if it showed 1 is modified, that means you have to go back into your document and update that modified image. Does that make sense? Okay. And then missing, you don't want any of them missing. That just means that something got deleted. And then after that, go ahead and click on Package. They're always going to pull up an instructions.txt. So this is if you were being really fancy and you sent your InDesign file to like Kinko's to print. Usually you would just send them a PDF. But if you were a graphic designer, you're probably sending the InDesign file. Okay. And now it's asking me, where do you want to put this folder? So when you package, it makes a new folder and it puts an InDesign. I'll show you what it makes, but here I go. This is my Creative Cloud. So again, it looks just like anything else on my computer. I'm going to go to SLCC. And actually, let me go back. I have an InDesign folder in here. And I'm going to put it right in here under InDesign. Everything here is basically set up by default. I don't turn on these two. So I'm going to click on Package. And this will happen almost every time. There could be restricted fonts. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. And now it doesn't look like it did anything, but let me show you what it looks like on my Creative Cloud. So here is that package folder I was telling you about. And when we go in here, let me stretch this out so you can see it. Do you see that I have the InDesign document, a new copy InDesign document called Portfolio Test? And there's another file called the InDesign Markup document. I will be completely honest, these documents are pretty much worthless. What those are for is if you have a newer version of InDesign and somebody's using an older one, you're supposed to send them the markup file. But InDesign is not good at going from version to version. I've had really bad luck with it, but that's what a markup file is. Do you see how it's significantly smaller? Okay. The other thing that it did for us automatically is it made a PDF preview of what we had created. So we didn't export it or anything. It did it automatically. And did it do it as pages or spreads? Pages. Yep. So it showed each page individually. And then the other thing you'll see in here, document fonts. So these are the 2 fonts that I used. Under links, it took all of the images that I had and it put them in one place. So it pulled it from all of those different places and it made copies of them in one place. Let me pull up the instructions. So this is, again, I rarely use this, but again, if we were graphic designers, we would absolutely fill this in. Okay, we're not, so we can just kind of ignore that. But now that I have it packaged, the way that I would work is I would go from now on, if I had images I wanted to put in, where would I put those? I'm giving you the answer. You'd put them under links, right? So you don't want to start going off of your desktop or your downloads. You just put everything right here so everything stays in a package.
So you're working on this, will it automatically stay in your package? Let's say
Uh-huh.
I'm adding some new photos
Yeah.
now. It'll automatically put it in that links file?
No, so that would be like a repackage.
Oh,
So-
at the end of every time you've worked on a session and you've added stuff, you need to repackage?
No, that's what we don't want to do. Because what ends up happening is you don't want to have 10 different copies of all of these different images. It gets really big.
Right.
So imagine your final portfolio. That's dozens of photos that you're repeating every time. I think a good rule of thumb is once you package it, that's the package you're working off of. And then what you do from then on is whenever you have new images to add, drop those images in the links folder. So if you take a picture using the camera and then you Photoshop it, put it in the links folder. And then maybe you find your Revit file, which is a PDF, you put that in your links folder. Once they're in your links folder, that's when you start importing them back into InDesign.
How do you do that? How do you save them into your links? So right away, let's say you're bringing a new image in,
Mhm.
you just right click and you can save it into the links file?
No, you don't save it. So this is just like file management. So let's say over here, I downloaded Vila Savoy PSD. See how that's there?
Yeah.
You can just drag and drop it in there. And then another example, let's say on my desktop, I had that Photoshop example. Pretend it's not here. Okay, let me use something else. Let's do, what else do I have in my downloads? I don't have a lot of stuff here, but let's say here's Sarah Robinson's branding package. Let's say I need something from that. I can drag and drop it in here. And so once I get all of the files that I'm working with and I need in the links folder, that's where I want to do the Control D or place from InDesign. Okay? And I know that that's hard to do, right? Because, I mean, it just depends on how OCD you are, I guess. I don't know. But I think this is the best way to work. And then really, if let's say you've been working on this for 2 or 3 weeks, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, I don't remember if I put everything in my links folder, maybe you can repackage it one more time, but then just make sure that that old one, you archive it somewhere else so you're not confused as to which one you're working with, okay? We could probably have at least 2 classes on file management, but we can't. You know, we just have to work with what we have and then just kind of self-check every once in a while, all right? So again, the reason why this is nice is now that this is here, I can go home and pull it up and it'll pull up all of my fonts, my links, everything in my InDesign at home, and the two will kind of seamlessly work together. I will say that because I'm on a PC here and a Mac at home, there's some fonts that have issues. Just because there's Windows licensed fonts and then there's Mac licensed fonts, and they don't always like each other, so that kind of drives me crazy. There's 2 main fonts that I use, and the names are slightly different between Windows and Macs, and it always gets a little bit confused. Okay, so I'm going to save this kind of like quick overview so you guys can refer back to it. We didn't go over any of the graphic stuff. So graphics means like the strokes around your images and things like that. We'll go over that another day. But for now, I think this is a good place to kind of get you guys started. So for the